I still remember the night like it happened yesterday. The rain was hammering down on the hospital windows, and the fluorescent lights above me buzzed faintly as if they too were exhausted. I was sitting in a hard plastic chair outside the intensive care unit, clutching a paper cup of coffee I hadn't touched. My hands were trembling, not from the cold, but from the knowledge that my mother was slipping away on the other side of that door. She had always been the strongest person I knew, a small woman with tired hands from decades of work, but with eyes that carried an entire world of love. When my father left us, when I was barely 12, she became both mother and father, working double shifts at the diner, sewing clothes at night, and somehow still finding the time to check my homework and ask me about my day. She had this incredible ability to make me feel like I was never alone, even when I knew she was exhausted beyond words. That night in the hospital, I knew I was about to lose her, and I felt more alone than I had ever felt in my life. When the doctor finally came out, his face told me the truth before he even opened his mouth. He explained softly, carefully, that her time was short, that I should say my goodbyes. I walked into her room, my throat burning with unshed tears. Machines beeped around her, tubes and wires tracing lines across her fragile body. But her face was calm. She turned her head ever so slightly and smiled at me. "Don't cry, Michael," she whispered, her voice raspy but steady. "I have something for you." Those words caught me off guard. Something for me? At that moment, I sat beside her, holding her frail hand in mine, and asked her what she meant. She told me that life would try to break me, that loneliness and fear would try to convince me I wasn't enough. But she looked me in the eyes, her grip surprisingly firm, and said, "The last gift I can give you is the truth. You are enough. You always were." Tears spilled down my face as I listened, her words piercing deeper than anything I had ever heard. She went on, telling me she had written me letters, dozens of them over the years. Letters I didn't even know existed. She said they were hidden in a wooden box under her bed, each one written during moments she couldn't share with me in person. Some were written when I was a child, some when I was a teenager making mistakes, some just last year when I thought I was too busy to visit. She said those letters were her way of walking beside me, even when she couldn't physically be there. That was her last conversation with me. Within an hour, she was gone. I buried her a week later under a sky that couldn't decide if it wanted to rain or shine. I stood there numb, going through the motions of condolences, handshakes, and "I'm so sorry" from people who could never understand the emptiness inside me. But that night, I remembered her words, the letters, the box. When I returned to her house, the house that had been my childhood fortress, I went into her bedroom and dropped to my knees beside her bed. Sure enough, there was a small wooden box tucked away underneath. My hand shook as I pulled it out. It was heavier than I expected. Inside, carefully stacked, were envelopes, each one labeled with a year. I sat there on the floor, surrounded by her scent, the faint traces of her perfume still lingering in the room, and opened the first letter. It was dated the year after my father left. I must have been 12. "Michael," it began, "I know you feel abandoned. I know you wonder if you were not enough for him to stay. But let me tell you, his leaving has nothing to do with you. You are more than enough, my boy. One day, you'll see it." I couldn't finish the letter through my tears. That night, I read letter after letter, some short, some long, each one like a piece of her soul poured onto paper. She had written to me when I was struggling with school, when I ran away for a night after a fight, when I graduated high school and thought she didn't notice me crying in my room. She had always noticed. She had always been watching, quietly, lovingly, carrying me in ways I didn't even know. The last letter was dated just a month before she fell ill. In it, she wrote, "Michael, I know you are a man now, but to me you will always be the boy who held my hand when I was tired. I won't be here forever, but remember, this life is not about what you achieve. It's about how much love you give. That is the only thing that lasts. By the time I finished the last letter, the sun was rising through the curtains. I felt something inside me shift. The pain was still there, but alongside it was a warmth, a strength I hadn't felt before. She hadn't left me empty, she had left me full of her wisdom, her love, her voice that would never truly fade. In the years since, whenever I doubted myself, whenever life felt too heavy, I would open one of those letters again. Each time, I would hear her voice reminding me, I am enough. I always was. And so are you. That was my mother's last gift to me, not money, not possessions, but a truth that became the foundation of my life. And if you're listening to me now, maybe you need that reminder too. Maybe you need to hear that you are enough. Because sometimes the greatest gift someone can give you isn't something you can hold, it's something that can hold you when everything else falls apart.